Hey everybody, welcome to Workforce Gaming. I am Brad, here to talk about the Plucky Squire. It has a very, very unique look to it. That's kind of what sets it apart, is some of the charm and the personality and the look that it has. So what I kind of want to do with this, because I kind of have mixed feelings about this game. There's a lot of things in this game that just feel like, yep, that's a video game, yep, that's a video game. But then there's so much charm and personality piled on top of it that it makes those basic things just almost negligible, because you're seeing so many cool things, you're seeing so many unique things. So how I'm going to do this, I want to start with kind of just the basics of what this game is. What are the kind of the bones of this game, the framework of this game, the things that we all know about video games, what is it doing? And then I want to talk about how it kind of plays with that, it adds on that, and it does its own thing to make you kind of see those things in a different light. So again, the basics here to start there. You are Jot, the Plucky Squire adventurer, and you need to go and find Humgrump, who is destroying parts of your world. You are kind of the chosen one, this famous adventurer. You've got your sword and you're ready to go save the land with a couple of your friends. There is very little unique there. This is kind of just our bare bones framework of it. The style of the game, it is a top-down Zelda. If you have played any of those, you are familiar with what you're doing. You have a sword, you're just slashing things, you even get your spin attack, you can throw your sword. That's 90% of our combat. You've got your very simple puzzles as well as you go through. You're putting a battery into this thing. You're moving this item from here to there. Again, we'll talk about where some of the puzzles get some unique features to them in a second, but it really is just very simplistic puzzles. I talk about it all the time. I'm not a puzzle game person. No issue with this. They are very straightforward, very simple puzzles, so don't expect anything to be racking your brain trying to figure out what these are. That's kind of the basics. My issue comes is that those basics, they're done well, but so much of the game is just that, where it's just like, okay, yep, I've done this before, I've been doing this before, I've played top-down Zeldas, I've played, the 100,000 other games that are kind of playing with that style a little bit. But where this game starts to get set apart is what they start doing on top of that. Moving into kind of the personality and what this game does differently is all about kind of the main key point of this game, which is you're not in a world, you're in a book. And the vast majority of the things that they do with this is centered on that point of you being a character in a book. That's so much of what this game does to kind of change, adjust, and move us in a different direction and take you somewhere different than a normal top-down Zelda would. So to start with, the book aesthetic is so cool. It is very, very cool. So as you're playing this game, it's done in the earlier style, like the very early NES Zeldas, where you're on a screen and then you hit the edge of the screen and then you go to the next one. But instead of just kind of bumping to the next screen, the page in the book turns. So you're constantly moving from page to page to page. You're seeing words. So I talked about kind of some of the puzzles where you're moving things around. The one that's kind of very unique is this rewriting piece, where the words would say something like, there's 2 metal boxes in front of you. And what you can do is, as you go around that page, there might be other words around, and there are certain words that you can kind of kick out of their sentence and swap. So you could then walk back to where it said that instead of the 2 metal boxes, you can change it to the 2 broken boxes, and then you can use your sword to smack them. It's very kind of cool just how that kind of changes just little tiny things with that. They do a few fun things like that. There's some goofy side things where you get words like, one of them was cheese, and you can turn stuff into cheese. Again, kind of a goofy thing, but that's what gives this game its personality. That's what is the hook of this game, is those weird, goofy personality things like that. I will say, I don't think the game does enough of those. I really feel like you could have gone all out crazy playing with some of those weird things, and I'm sure there's a lot of things just because you can change those pieces around, and it does give you, especially in the later part, some freedom to kind of flip between where you are in the book. But I feel like you could have done a little bit more with that. It just seemed like one of those things that would pop up. I was like, ooh, neat, okay, I can kind of play with the words again. What word am I looking for? Oh, there's a word, let's move those words around. Very, very cool way to do puzzles there. Now, the book aesthetic also plays into our story, because not only is Humgrump this evil guy who's going to destroy the land, but his thing is that he's realized that he's in a book. So he's kind of the first one that realizes, oh, we're in a book, and if he can leave the book, then he can actually change things, he can do things, he can alter this larger world. So very early on, what he actually does is goes, oh, I'm just going to kick you out of the book. And you get knocked out of the book, and you're running around a kid's room on the shelf. It's very cool, because you're in this very, hand-drawn 2D looking Zelda game and then boop, popped out, and now you're in a much more realistic world. It's a very completely different art style. It's a very different look when you're running around this world than when you're in the book. And that story just all about becoming, okay, now he's not only just destroying this land in this quote-unquote book made up land, but no, he's going into the real world and trying to do things in the real world. Again, it's that kind of that extra layer on those just bare bones kind of framework of the game that's really doing some different things here. With that, you get these perspective changes. So there's the book, which is your top-down Zelda. You get kicked out. It plays very similar to kind of that top-down Zelda too, but you're more free roaming around a world, still top-down camera, all of that stuff. Your moves don't change, anything like that. But there's some perspective changes. So as you go from page to page, the next page you turn to might be like a 2D side scroller. So you've got to do kind of your more traditional, like, okay, jump, platforming across this thing in a 2D space, get to the end, and then we're back to our top down. So it plays with perspective a little bit. In addition to that, it has mini games. So most of the bosses in this are mini games. So a couple early examples. The first one is there's this honey badger, and instead of fighting the honey badger, you do basically like a punch out style fight against it. You do a fight with a bow and arrow against this guy. And again, it switches to a different perspective. All these different things kind of play to just kind of, again, just add this level of charm to it. Those are the things that set it apart. Where I try and loop my brain into, do I like this or not? It's like, yeah, there's a lot of just this basic concept, but they've layered so many different things on top of it, and they've played around with it so much that it does make it kind of this unique, fun thing to just kind of explore and see what's next. There are lots of moments where it's like, oh, we're doing this now. That's cool. Oh, I can do that. That's cool. Oh, I have some powers to now manipulate the book once Jot realizes he's in a book. Okay, now I can open the book. I can close the book. I can turn the pages kind of freely. There's some kind of fun to be had with just how this thing plays around with it. I really do wish they got deeper into some of that stuff. The game is relatively short. I think maybe 8 to 10 hours, kind of somewhere in that range was about where I was at. So it kind of does the we're going to hit on something, move on, hit on something, move on, hit on something, move on. Kind of a thing of the chapter. This is our thing for this chapter. This is our thing for this chapter. And you never kind of get that full toolbox moments where you're like, oh, yeah. That move or that thing I learned in chapter 3, I can do that now. And that'll play with it. But it kind of sticks very closely to the thing you learned in this chapter is the thing you need to use. Outside the book thing, like I said, the story is very just kind of the go stop the bad guy. It is very, very cool. The last 2 or 3 chapters has a pretty cool twist to it that I very, very much enjoyed. That's kind of like, ooh, that kind of came out of nowhere. I like this. That does play around with kind of that book aesthetic and your kind of traditional hero going to get the villain thing, and it plays with that a little bit more, which I thought was really cool. So ultimately, this game is just, it's such this unique thing because it is a very old school, simple game design piece of top down running around. And that's just kind of, I got a few points where it just kind of got bored with that. But luckily there's enough of this charm that kind of kicks in and goes, oh, okay, but now we're going to throw this in. Oh, okay. I'll keep going a little bit longer. There are a couple of points where I thought about stopping it, but there would be some other new piece where it's like, oh, here's a new mini game. Oh, here's a new book power. Oh, here's a new thing in the outside world that's happening. It just kind of kept getting you go, oh, okay, I'll go one more step. Okay, I'll go one more step. Okay, I'll go one more step until I ultimately got to the end. So I do think there's a little bit there that if you've played those kind of top-down games, you've played a bunch of them, gameplay-wise, there's not going to be much else here for you other than what you've seen before. But again, it is that aesthetic, it's that feeling, it's that general just kind of fun, goofy joy that comes with this game that I think is the thing that kind of sets it above just being those gameplay elements themselves. We are Workforce Gaming. Leave a comment below, subscribe to our channel. It's linked to Sports and Coffee as well. We'll see you later.